Hey, what's up, Minnesota Viking fans? Welcome to the Purple People Podcast. My name is Kyle Smith. I am joined this week by Adam Carlson. What's up, sir? How are you?
Not too bad. I'm hanging out here. I'm in Viking Stadium. As you can see, the fans are leaving after a nice victory. Good times.
Yeah, I'm super jealous. I've got to get on board with that. That's amazing. I don't know. You said not to trust the green screen, so maybe we'll go with this app that you're talking about. It seems to be doing pretty well.
I bought 2 different green screens, and my computer just wouldn't match up the colors with it. So I said, screw it, and went with the virtual green screen. It's a little weird. You know, it'll shift a little bit. Takes a little while for some stuff to show up. But it's fun.
It is fun.
So I'll do it.
I like every week we don't know what we're going to get with you. That's all right. This is episode number 402 of the Purple People Podcast. Are you feeling it? There were some interesting comments this week from Adam Thielen, which I fully support, and I like his leadership in those. We're going to go over that. We're going to talk about some potential free agents from the Viking age that some people think the Vikings should bring in for a tryout. We're going to talk about Everson Griffin and the news with him this week. A little bit of Chad Beebe stuff I wanted to go over, and whatever Adam Carlson has. Of course, we're going to rely on him because he runs the show. I am just in the back seat causing all kinds of ruckus.
So we're going to talk about big red beards?
Big red beards. I mean, I've got a baby red beard.
That's hour 2 of the show. It's big red beard time.
I'm going to try. My goal is for the rest of the year, no haircuts, no shaving. I'll trim the neck beard, but we're going to see what happens. So
I've got the hair back in a ponytail today. That's why you don't see it all wild, but
I'm so jealous. I've got to find the willpower to let it grow that long.
Summer's the worst for it. I struggle so bad, but I'm finally at a place at my parents' house here where I can turn on the air conditioning if it gets super hot, just close the windows. Last year was nice too because I could do that when I was in St. Paul because I had a nice little basement apartment with air conditioning, so it was cool all year down there. All I got to do is never leave the house.
Well, we're in the perfect gear to do that.
Right?
It's actually a great idea if you just stay home all the time. It's just still hard for me to get used to.
Another person that doesn't like that idea at all is Mike Zimmer. When he was doing his stream talking about signing out stuff and talking with fans that are asking questions, his daughter read a question that was being fed to him, and it turns out he is not a fan of no fans in stadiums, and he feels that not having the fans in there being loud is really going to hurt the team at US Bank Stadium. We'll have to see because the Vikings have been pretty dominant at home ever since US Bank Stadium came into existence. So if they start to struggle a little bit there without the fans, we'll know it's more about the fans and less about the facility.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. We have another segue of an interesting comment that Coach Zimmer said, but I just went over the schedule last night, and usually the Vikings are pretty good to be around 6-2, 7-1 at home.
Right.
Maybe a good year would be 8-0. So I'm thinking about the playoffs. This is a brutal schedule when I'm breaking it down based on some of the teams that are up and coming, and then the previous playoff teams. There's some here. I'm in Texas for a little while. They're playing away in Houston. They're playing away in Indianapolis with a great O-line and a new, better quarterback than last year. They go on the road to Seattle again. So it's not going to – and the Christmas Day game against the Saints. So it's not going to be an easy year. No, there aren't many freebies, if any at all. But it's funny you mentioned that. I haven't been there personally. Have you been to US Bank personally?
Oh, yeah, several times.
Yeah, I see it on TV, and I'm just like, wow, it looks incredible, the structure, the layout, but I can imagine how
the atmosphere is amazing when it's packed.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I think it's funny, too, just to point out, because Kirk Cousins is all about no fans, and the coach is completely against it. I think that's the funniest thing in the world. Of course, Kirk Cousins would be like, hey, less pressure, more laid back. I can see why a player would like that. They're, going into
I can see why an offensive player would like that.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
At US Bank Stadium, the fans are quiet when the team is on offense, so they can hear all the plays and audibles and adjustments. Offensive players would not like that very much. And then on the defensive side of things, you want that crowd loud. You want the other team not to be able to hear their calls, not to be able to make those adjustments. So I can see why Mike Zimmer, a defensive-minded head coach, would be like, not wanting to have that silence, whereas Kirk Cousins at home is used to not having the crowd going wild when he's trying to make plays, you know?
Well, I was trying to shift to the away games too, and we flipped that script the opposite way. Two places that the Vikings are going to play this year are in Seattle and New Orleans, and those are known for how loud they are.
Notoriously loud, yeah.
And that's an advantage now, being the away team coming in. There's not all this ruckus, and obviously the noise and the fans going crazy adds a little bit of pressure. So a guy like Kirk Cousins, it's always kind of, we'll say it, kind of folded under a lot of the more most pressure moments. It's gonna be good for him, but I see what Coach Zimmer is saying, especially on like third down. I mean, you've been there; you can tell us about it. When it's third down and the defense needs to make a stop, that atmosphere absolutely changes things.
It gets absolutely devastating, and what's even more fun is the couple times I've gotten to go there with a friend of mine. I go there with my buddy Clint every once in a while. We try to catch a game each year, but of course this year I don't think it's going to work out. But rather than like yelling defense or something like that, he just screams at the top of his lungs. And it's one of the most frightening things because he does it every third down. It's not even like just, defense or let's go team, or it's just yelling at the top of his lungs. And it's amazing, but yet you kind of want to say, hey, tone it down a little bit, but you also don't want him to.
It's a glass. I'm just going back to Anchorman, a glass box of emotion here, and I can't figure out which one. As a singer myself, I don't know how you do that. Even if you take breaks, screaming is the worst thing you can do for your vocal cords, especially if you don't know how to control it and bring it up from your diaphragm. So I'm sure he's hoarse at the end of that day. And if he's not, I need to know his secret. So, Clint, let me know if you ever watch this episode. How do you do it, sir? Yeah, hopefully I'm with you, man. I think we've talked about it enough on the show. We don't have to do it every single episode. I don't think there's going to be fans this year. I think the name of safety, I would love for it to happen. I would take a chance. If Houston ends up letting fans in, I'll try to get tickets to that Vikings game while I'm here. It's not that far from where I'm at, but in the interest of safety, I don't see that happening. We mentioned it last week on the show, too. I think Green Bay came out and said for at least the first two games, they're not going to have any fans. I'm surprised they have the Vikings released anything in the same kind of.
They have. They've said that first game will have no fans. Their second week is on the road, and then after that, they're going to make a decision going forward. So, like the Packers, the first 2 weeks, they're going to go no fans.
Okay, good. I hadn't heard it, but now you guys can have an update from last week. Seems like a consensus. This is kind of a sidebar just to get everybody on board because this kind of does affect the NFL, not necessarily the Vikings in particular, but it's amazing that we're going to have an NFL season because there's pretty much consensus, 80% across the board, no college football this year. In the name of safety, I know the Pac-12, the Big Ten, all those schools have said no. What's left is the ACC and the SEC. Now, if I'm being a jerk and just calling it as I see it, that's usually who's in the championship game anyways, minus an Ohio State or an Oklahoma. But it's usually an LSU or an Alabama versus Clemson. That's what it's been the last couple of years. So, that's interesting because the NFL is going forward with it. I think they're handling it, managing it. I want to say handling. I think they're managing the situation as best they can. We're seeing updates all the time of the COVID list being updated and people coming off. And we'll see. It's going to be interesting when the season starts because, these tests are going to pop positive. And the teams will have to adjust accordingly. But I'm glad that there is still going to be an NFL season.
Yeah, the NFL has a little less accountability because they don't have to deal with student athletes. Instead, they're dealing with contracted individuals. And from that point, they even did extend that olive branch to say that players can opt out. And we did see players opt out, which is completely understandable. But now we got to look at precautions and how they're going to make this safe. Because right now, I guess, teams are spending a lot of money on the COVID tests, which is fantastic news because you don't need one of your top assets to be unavailable on the football field. But also it's tough because you can't micromanage everybody's life. Right. If during the middle of the week, Adam Thielen wants to go and get some KFC and while he's going through the drive-thru, he accidentally contracts COVID. I mean, it happens. Or if he's close to someone that has and has to go on that COVID list until he times out from it.
Oh, that's the other thing. We've discussed it on the show before, but the NBA is doing a great job. Their playoffs are starting soon, and I can't wait to watch those. I'm not a big, huge NBA fan, casual watcher. I'd love the playoffs and then obviously the finals, but they're in a bubble, and they can make smaller courts because their area of play isn't as big as a football field. And we've talked about it on the show. The NFL doing a bubble is just not feasible based on the number of people alone, much less geographically and all the resources they need to build a new stadium. They're not going to get one built in 2 weeks, 5 fields ready to go. But
well, what would it be for the NFL? You'd have to isolate players for 23 weeks.
Yeah,
just for the season and playoffs.
I was getting to as well. The NBA bubble, they're picking up from a season that was paused for a while. This is a full NFL season. When it starts in September, it's not over till the end of January, early February. So that's 6 months pretty much. You can't ask that. And if the players came together and said, no, I'll isolate for 6 months from my family, blah, blah, blah. Had we known about this and been prepared, a year in advance, the NFL could probably have made it happen. But we're adjusting to this pandemic on the fly, all of us, to include the NFL. So, like you said,
and let's be honest, October, November, December, we're going to see a sharp increase in the number of kids being born. So
that's very true. Well, it's to piggyback your point is you can't ask these guys not to want to see their family. I would certainly not want to come back if I was an NFL player, and I'm just speaking based on what I think would happen. But if I'm all banged up, there's a horrible loss that our team just had. I don't want to come back to not have a comforting face of my wife, girlfriend, or kids, or all the above, whatever. And you don't get to have that, and then it's going to drag on. I've been there personally, the military being gone for 6, 7, 8 months at a time. I know these guys don't want to do that. It's not exactly the same, but the idea is. So it's going to be interesting. I have no doubt in my mind that a major Viking player or 2 or 3 or however many is going to pop hot for this COVID test eventually. They're going to have to sit out, and the backup's going to have to step up. But the good news is it's not going to be just Minnesota. That's going to happen everywhere.
As long as it's not Kirk, we'll probably be okay.
Oh, God. Oof. No. I don't even want to think about it.
Stay away from Pizza Ranch, Kirk.
This isn't like a few years back when we had Bradford assigned, and then 2 weeks later he played, and Sean Hill just managed to turn around in the game. Is far worse, especially with this schedule. You can't afford that. So hopefully, knock on wood here, that does not happen.
Absolutely agreed.
I wanted to talk about Chad Beebe for a little bit because Adam and I went back and forth on this. I thought because of his speed, he'd be an awesome return man, but Adam is not in the Chad Beebe as the returner camp. But he is in an article over there on the Viking Age where our own Adam Carlson works. Adam Patrick wrote this a little bit ago. Will Chad Beebe still be with the Vikings in week 1? And that's a tough question because there's a lot of competition at receiver. He's going to have to show something off as well on special teams. But I'm going to read something from offensive coordinator Gary Kubiak. Said he was just as excited about Beebe, no doubt. First of all, he is glad that Beebe is healthy. I think the routine we're in right now may help him a little bit. We're very young. We're very competitive at receiver. I think we can make sure that Beebe comes along and gets back to 100%. And the key here is I think he's going to be a really fine player. I think the key for him is staying healthy and getting that first season under his belt where he is healthy. And then you could see his career take off. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but good words and a good send-off from Gary Kubiak talking about
I don't think so. I think that's some jabs there.
I think that it's enough to say, hey, you have potential? Question mark.
The way I read it is if you can stay healthy, you'll do well somewhere in the NFL. Because I didn't read into any of that as being with us or in Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm reading it over again. I see what you mean. I'm just optimistic because I like the guy. But talking about one of the guys that you kind of to transition to your side of this, I'm not even an argument. This is kind of a true thing. That doesn't sound too good for him after I read it over again. KJ Osborne might be taking over return duties. Oh, yeah. We brought in Tajay Sharp from the Titans. Obviously, we drafted Justin Jefferson. It's going to be a tight-knit receiver group. And if he does make it onto the team, I believe he'll be near the bottom. We'll see.
I will throw that spoiler out that when I released my 53-man projected roster earlier, I believe pretty close to a week ago now, maybe, he was not part of my 53-man roster. I did double up a little bit on defensive tackles because I feel that's where a lot of the Vikings' undeveloped talent is, unless they can sneak one of those guys through on the practice squad. Honestly, I like a lot of their young defensive tackles, but yeah, I don't think we're going to see a lot of the wide receivers that we're very, very familiar with or that are fan favorites. I know BB can run some good routes. He's not a burner like his dad was, but he's efficient enough to get things done. He's been a backup holder for the Vikings, which may be a good thing for him in terms of trying to get a roster spot. But then again, there's also other guys that could be able to perform that job if needed. So I don't know. To me, he's probably not going to make the roster, but I'm hopeful that he will because I like him too. I like what he brings to the team. He's got a little bit of that Adam Thielen fire that we saw when he was coming to the team and doing whatever he could to try to make plays. So hopefully he can find a way to make that roster.
If I hadn't have used that as a title before, that would have been the name of the show. Hit me, BB, one more time. I wanted to talk about him a little bit. But just as for me personally, I'm going to read your article because you guys can support Adam Carlson that way and get the clicks and the likes and the comments up there and help him pay his bills. But how many wide receivers did you end up predicting were going to be on, 5 or 6?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Perfect.
Yes, it is 5 or 6.
I will head over there and check that out soon enough. Another interesting article to transition into players that we're going to talk about. A couple free agents. I know that your guy Dean Jones wrote this, and it was
he does
cool.
great work.
I haven't read much from him. I've seen his name before. I don't know any of these players minus one, but these were interesting considering the positions. But there's one that I didn't see, 2 actually in here that I did not see, that I was kind of curious, and it's probably about money. But just to let you guys know, if you go to the Viking Age, it's up there. It's not even 30 minutes ago. Ross Cockrell, for a cornerback. It looks like he was with Carolina for a little bit. There is Marcel Darius, which I've heard his name before. Decent player. Defensive tackle, of course. Julian Stanford, outside linebacker. And Earl Watford, offensive line. Which that said guard and just guard, so we could figure that out. Because there's a lot of talk about that guard position going on, especially on the internet right now. But, yeah, that's really cool.
I've been saying it since the start. That offensive line, Ezra Cleveland's going to be one of the guards if he's not named one of the starting tackles. And it sounds like they're sticking with Riley Reif at left tackle. Ezra Cleveland, you're going to be playing guard. And Pat Elflein actually got a bit of a nod from the coaching staff during the recent interviews, and they said that he did a good job last year. So I don't know if they were watching games a lot, but they said that they thought Pat Elflein did a good job. So, and honestly, if we're being truthful here, Pat Elflein will do a move along, Cat. Will do a much better job at right guard than he will at left guard because he's more of that brute that can push people around a little bit better, and that'll leave Ezra Cleveland to be a little bit more on pass protection on the left side and allow Kirk Cousins not to worry as much about his blind side.
Well, I didn't think of that. Maybe that's why they are high on him. And I know that he was a second-round pick. They're still going to ride that out, kind of like they did with Laquan Treadwell, even though he.
But you got to consider that a demotion, right? Going from center to left guard to right guard. It's like each step was a little bit of a demotion.
Well, I would have felt really shitty about myself anyways if a year or 2 after I was drafted, the first round they took a center, and I'm like, what the hell, guys? I'm still here. You know what I mean? But if he ends up finding his role and does well, I'm not going to be upset about it. Not at all. Just from what we saw last year, I'm not a football savant like Adam Carlson is here, but he was terrible. He was just not good. I can't remember a game where somebody didn't give him a donkey, if it wasn't him or Xavier Rhodes last year, or I know no one gave him a game ball. So I don't know, man. He's just going to get passed around until he either finds a spot or he's thumbing out there in the middle of downtown Minneapolis to his next team. But we'll see. I'm glad you mentioned that because I read that they had some praise for him, and I'm like, what are you guys seeing? But the thought of him going over to right guard never crossed my mind. So maybe we'll see. The idea of Ezra Cleveland though stepping in and playing left guard, I'm all for it.
I know people are really high on some of those other offensive linemen in Minnesota, but you don't draft a guy with that much potential and then sit him when he's fully capable of being on the offensive line. You just don't do it because he will beat out those other players for a spot on that offensive line. Which spot? I don't know, but he will be on that offensive line because he's that good.
There's your hot take, ladies and gentlemen. You don't need a bold statement from me anymore. That's it. Ezra Cleveland will find his way into the starting rotation and spot on the offensive line, probably at left guard, says Adam Carlson. And you heard that here first. All right, before we get to the main topic, we got to talk about this because it hurt my heart, and I'm just glad that it wasn't with the Green Bay Packers, but former Viking defensive end and one of our favorite players of the last 10 years here at the show, Everson Griffen, has found a new home in the NFL, at least for this season, and it's with the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, 1 year, $6 million, right, with $3 million guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
Not a massive contract, but then again, the Vikings had already considered that they were going to be moving on from Everson, and they had to do so with that plan because they knew that he was either going to opt out or he was going to get cut based on his salary. It was one of those two things. Afidi had already stepped up, and honestly, Afidi over 2019 was a more effective pass rusher than Everson Griffen was. So the fact that they saw that and that they know Danielle Hunter is just going to continue being an absolute freak, they knew that they could take that money and spend it elsewhere. And honestly, I'm going to miss Everson Griffen. He has such great energy. He has been a magnificent player for the team for many years. It's going to be odd seeing him not be in a Vikings jersey on game day. It's going to be tough when the Vikings face the Cowboys if he does get in the game and make a difference. But I know that this was all writing on the wall earlier. I would have loved to see the Vikings sign him back, but I also think that Minnesota drafted their next big defensive end, and I think that they are already pretty happy with the guys they have. So overall, I guess the writing was just on the wall and it was time. We've seen a lot of this with teams like the New England Patriots who let go of players maybe a year or two too early rather than a year or two too late.
Yep.
And I think this is the right move, even if it does sting a little bit.
It stings because we have such a love and affection for that guy because I liked him because he was very emotional. He's hilarious, but very emotional. You feel like you can relate to him, but not surprised by the Cowboys. They have made a ton of offseason acquisitions. Andy Dalton as the backup. They got Clinton Dix. They signed Everson Griffen on the cheap. Good for the Cowboys. They picked up a good player. I don't know that he's going to start, but he's definitely going to rotate in, and he's still very capable. We saw that last year.
Yeah, Cowboys got a lot of weapons on offense too. They're going to be a pretty scary team.
Yeah, I have them winning the NFC East pretty easily too, but that's just my personal opinion. But that kind of segued to earlier what we were talking about. The two guys that I didn't get to mention, we got caught up in those names of free agents or possible signings. Jadeveon Clowney, as much as everybody wanted him to come to Minnesota, his price tag's way too high. If they're not going to keep
that's not
Griffen around, they're definitely not going to go after him. And then I wanted to see them give Snacks Harrison a chance. But again, I don't know if the money would have been there. Just a big popular name. We know he's a decent player. Don't know that would have worked in Minnesota. I don't know if they could have afforded him, but back to the Everson Griffen stuff. We wish him all the best, except whenever they play the Cowboys this year. I think it's in November-ish. He's going to be a good player.
Chris Thompson brought up something kind of interesting on his Twitter account. He asked, when he was talking about Everson Griffen, he was kind of asking, but I guess more saying that he believes Everson Griffen is a lock for the Vikings Ring of Honor.
Yep.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's one of those fringe kind of things for me. I could see it, but it's not for me. As you use the term lock, as Chris Thomason said, I don't think that's a guarantee at all.
No, Everson Griffin was very good. I think he's fourth in sacks in Vikings history, which is very impressive. He's at a high rate of quarterback takedowns. He's provided some great moments for the team. But honestly, if he does get in the Ring of Honor, I'll be a little surprised. I'll be happy for him. Don't get me wrong. I'll be a little surprised.
We'll all three at the Purple People podcast be happy for him, but let's just be real. Danielle Hunter's going to pass him within the next 2 years, and then he's going to be fifth on the all-time list. And in half the time, maybe. And I'm not saying that to discredit anything that Everson's done. He had his years as an above-average player, according to total NFL standards. He's had a lengthy career. He's made a lot of money. He's had times in flash, and he's been with the team for a decade or just about.
He's made some Pro Bowls.
Yeah, that too. I forgot about those. I think he's an above-average, lengthy player, but I never could say that I put him in the absolute elite category. That blue chip kind of player up there. He was great. We loved him, but I'm with you, man. I don't think he's a lock by any means. But if he does, hey.
Because what's funny is if we talk about the Pro Football Hall of Fame, if we were to ask right now if you think Everson Griffin would make the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the answer is no.
No.
So the next step down is the Vikings Ring of Honor, and that's where things kind of get even more gray is, well, we like him. He's been productive, but not really. Speaking of Chris Thomason, there was some more fun stuff from that live chat with Coach Zimmer while he was doing signings for fans. And well, I'm not going to dig into the little jab he made at Chris Thomason because I guess there's some debate back and forth as to whether or not fans appreciate what Chris Thomason does. Some feel he asks tough questions that he just wants to know the answer to, which understandable. Others feel like he doesn't know his interviewer, the people he's talking to well enough to ask questions that can be answered or would be answered, or instead wasting time. So you've got those two different sides of the fandom from those pressers that I don't think I'll ever see eye to eye. But I guess my thing is I've interviewed people before. I've interviewed Vikings players, and I've interviewed people from The Walking Dead. And when I talk to people from The Walking Dead, I know that there's questions I can't ask them. I know I can't have them tell me anything about what their character is going to do in upcoming episodes or the arcs that are going to happen or which characters die or anything like that. So I don't waste their time doing that.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that makes for a good interview. I don't think that makes for any good information coming out. Instead, I try to approach it from different angles and say, like, which character would you rather, which character would you like to see die on the show going forward? And those kind of questions ask a different question, but they can be just as interesting to people that are fans. So instead of asking Mike Zimmer, is Kirk Cousins going to be healthy enough to play in week 6? Because he don't know. And even if he did know, he's not telling us because it would give the opposing team an advantage when they're scouting. Maybe ask, what is the contingency plan if Kirk Cousins can't go? It's different ways that you can ask things to get the answers that you might be looking for.
I'm with you 100%. There are certain things I will remember Chris Thomason for, and I didn't think that it was right. When Tony Sperano passed, being at the funeral and taking photos there, that was super disrespectful in my eyes. I do agree. He will ask a question that you're like, well, damn. There's a lot of cookie cutter interviewers that ask basic stuff to get recycled robot jargon out of quarterbacks, head coaches, offensive coordinators, whatever. But he'll ask a tough question. I don't like the little things and the little jabs like that. And then, things that you mentioned, you're not going to ask obvious questions that people aren't going to talk about, like the Adrian Peterson child abuse incident. The Vikings were obviously keeping a tight lip on that. They put him away. The NFL put him away and said, hey, we're not going to deal with that right now. When you go and dig about that, he can't answer that. Why waste the time? Because Mike Zimmer already doesn't like talking to the media. So
right.
make those seconds count, I guess, but I'm not going to fault the guy for what he chooses to do as a profession, because on paper, if you've had that longevity, you must be doing something right. And he's been
now,
around.
Thompson does do great articles throughout the offseason and during the season when talking about things that aren't immediately time-sensitive things, like looking back at players, looking at some of the stuff that the players are doing off the field. He does do some very excellent work. But when he gets in that presser room, he asks questions that he knows can't be answered, and that bugs me. But what I wanted to talk about from that Mike Zimmer autograph session on the Mike Zimmer Foundation Facebook account was a story that he told. A fan asked him if he could tell any story from the locker room. Now, I wrote an article about this over on the Viking Age, but I might as well share it here too because I think it's fun. Apparently, when Mike Zimmer arrived in Minnesota, he was up in his office, and one of the athletic trainers came up to him and said, "Do you allow your guys to gamble in the locker room?" Didn't take Mike Zimmer long to say no. So what did he do? Immediately he went down to the locker room and he saw his boys down there. They had a table set up and they were throwing dice. The first thing Zimmer did, tell him that is not acceptable. They took the table right out of there and there was no more dice throwing. And that's how Mike Zimmer shut down gambling in the Minnesota Vikings locker room. It's weird though too to think that that kind of behavior was acceptable under previous Vikings coaches, but then you'll remember that coaches like Leslie Frazier were players' coaches.
Yep.
So those players, they would probably walk all over him to the point to where they could do almost anything in that locker room. And Mike Zimmer is definitely not that way.
That's the thing that you get, and you mentioned Leslie Frazier. It's kind of weird to say that he was the last coach before Mike Zimmer because he feels like he's been here forever now, but it's totally accurate. I mean, you can hear in every interview, all the way from a guy like that's a Hall of Famer like Adrian Peterson, all the way down to Adam Thielen before he was Adam Thielen that we know now. They're like, yeah, he's tough. That's the first thing everyone says. He is tough, but he gains the respect of everyone because he keeps them in check. And I think I don't think everybody can do that well. There are different personality types, but I couldn't see Mike Zimmer being one of those guys that kisses people's ass and gets. It's just not. They would think it was fake, and I think that the players appreciate that authenticity, and they know that.
I can't see any player thinking they can walk all over him or take advantage of him. I don't see that one bit.
Nope. And, it rubs some players the wrong way. Like Jaron Kearse was openly not satisfied with that, and that's why he moved on. He wasn't happy here, and I'm sure Zimmer was a lot to do with that. Being a former DB coach, probably wrote him pretty hard, but.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that the overwhelming amount of players would be like, hey, he's tough, man. We respect him and we love him. And I think they know. Coach has said it before. He would go to bat for any of these players. So I like that kind of tough love kind of thing. I think it brings a different attitude to the locker room because the Vikings, especially the defense, the defense plays hard. There's not an easy day with the Viking defense any Sunday when they're playing. So,
well, it's not only that, but we saw a complete attitude turnaround in that entire Vikings organization when it got to being Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer. Before that, we were seeing players getting arrested constantly, scandals happening once in a while, players just throwing weights at people. Just ridiculous stuff going on. And when Mike Zimmer arrived and Rick Spielman signed on that Mike Zimmer train, we saw a completely different change in this organization, and it resulted in more structure, more wins, more entertainment, and a better overall roster. So maybe they're onto something with drafting some of these character players over players with a touch more talent, because we've seen players that have those character issues fizzle out of the league really quickly or not fit into a locker room and be able to be as productive as they should be because of those kind of things that would keep them off the field due to legal issues or having trouble working with teammates or working with coaches or having a strong work ethic. It's just amazing the turnaround this Vikings organization has had over the entire course of Mike Zimmer's time here.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the other thing that's really you think about, it's happened this week too. Maybe not one guy that we've all heard of. We heard the story if you've paid attention to social media, but like Washington, Adrian Peterson's going to get the nod as a starter there again. Darius Geis, their starting running back. He messed up, pretty nasty stuff, and we'll go into it. You can Google it. Washington cut him immediately. And then a Seahawk rookie tries to sneak in his girlfriend disguised as a player into camp, and they cut him. And that's the kind of stuff with Zimmer. They're not going to put up with unless they really need you around, and they'll give you a second chance. But the Vikings aren't a 3-strike team. You might get a second chance if your character and your resume has been flawless before. But if it's enough, they'll get rid of you. And
yeah, we've seen a little bit of that leeway with Holton Hill, Ron Curse before he left for Detroit. If you are talented enough, they will make some sort of leeway. But otherwise, if you are a young player who hasn't quite established yourself yet and you screw up, you might start packing your bags.
Oh, man. You guys have to check out what we were talking about earlier, the live stream. That's fantastic. Mike Zimmer's daughter, and then the Chris Thomason comment was – I won't say that we have to go over it a bunch, but it was just funny because we're going into, year 6 with Mike Zimmer, and he's still as blunt as could be. It's hilarious. But
me and Mr. Smith always sit and talk about the pressers after the game, and he always seems to ask one question that's just ridiculous enough, and you can see Mike Zimmer just kind of get a little bit furious and a little bit upset that they would even be asked.
You can't not see the change in his behavior and the visible irritation that comes over. And then it's always something short and sarcastic or smart-ass because he just doesn't want to deal with that. I think it's hilarious. And then, of course, Mike Zimmer's daughter's like, yeah, maybe you should say that quietly next time. And he's like, no, I don't care.
He hasn't been too quiet about it in the past either. So,
oh, man, you got to love that. So let's get to the main topic here, bringing this up, because I think this is about as respectable as we can get here. And this is just another plug for the Viking Age because Adam Carlson published this. So let's get right into it. Adam Thielen is tired of all the talk and has his eyes on a Minnesota Super Bowl. Yeah.
Yeah, he went on XM at NFL Radio and was talking with Bruce Gradkowski and I can't remember the other co-host off the top of my head. But they were talking about how hype always seems to surround NFL teams and how good a team does during a draft or a preseason or an off season or even in the first few weeks of the season. That has got to kind of slow down a little bit for the hype on that because it has to translate into success and a deep postseason run. Now, Minnesota did do a pretty solid job of turning their hype last year into a playoff run that included a playoff win. So that had to feel pretty good to get some of that off his chest. But you got to love seeing Kirk Cousins be able to win a big game like that. And you've got to love seeing Adam Thielen still want to take that further. Now, I have seen some other interpretations of the statements that he made on XM radio or Sirius radio about how this could be a shot at the coaching staff, and I don't quite see it that way. I think the hype doesn't originate from the coaching staff. I don't think the coaching staff is telling players to buy into any hype of any kind. As a matter of fact, I don't think that anything showing the Vikings as like, I know in recent history, even in the past week or so, some organizations have came out with their projections as to who are going to win divisions, and some have picked the Vikings. Now, I don't see that being bulletin board material for the Vikings. I don't see them putting that up in the locker room for anybody. You're going to get the negative stuff up there. You're going to get the stuff that just fuels you. Kirk Cousins has said that some of the stuff that he does read out there negatively does bother him and does light a little bit of a fire under him. And that's good. It should. You should be able to read things that people are saying about you that does light that little bit of that fire. And all the praise can go to your head the exact opposite way. If you read too much praise, you will start to believe it. So I can understand why Mike Zimmer does nearly anything he can to avoid the media, and why that in itself, whether it's a fan page or a sports organization of experts or analysts, it's just hard to know you're a good team, but still fight like you're the underdog every week. You've got to have that mentality. You've got to be the dog in the fight that is just willing to give it everything you've got all the time.
Makes me think of Marshawn Lynch. I forget who was interviewing, and said just hit a you know what in the mouth and just run him over and over and over. It says over. And I thought that was funny because that's the attitude you have to have, and that's exactly to your point. I think too, I'm with you, man. I don't feel like this is a shot at the coaching staff in any way, because when we break it down into basic common sense as football fans, you have to understand the coaching staff and the GM and all the coaches have to support their guys. They have to say, well, we killed the draft. We got the best players. We got everybody we wanted. Because they can't not give the confidence to their players, especially now. And Thielen talked about this, and I'm reading your article now, but with COVID and everything, Adam Thielen said, take advantage of every rep, whether it be walkthroughs, because we can't have practice yet or whatever. There are teams that are taking advantage of those and getting better every day, and those are the teams that are going to make a run and have a chance. He also says, I think when it comes down to it, quote, quit talking about it, right? Don't talk about the hype. Can we talk about in the offseason how we feel and all the weapons we have and blah, blah, blah. He's like, that's great on paper, but the best thing he said is that doesn't win you games. And I love that about it. This guy, and that's the reason why this guy came from undrafted all the way up. Now he's the number one receiver on the team. He's amazing at saying that. But I'm with you, man. This isn't a shot at the coaching staff. It's more of a scouting yourself and calling your teammates out and saying, you better be doing and putting in the work, because this year is going to be hard, because we're not doing it like we normally do, especially for those rookies, man. It's going to be a rough couple of first games for them to get adjusted, I think.
Now, Adam Thielen, we've seen him fight through so many levels to get where he is. He was cut by the Vikings after he was signed as an undrafted free agent, and he came back, worked on the practice squad, finally earned a spot on the special teams unit. He worked hard through there, came back, and he got a chance on offense, made some plays, worked his way up the depth chart, and he turned into a starter, and then he became a Pro Bowl player. And we just see that the sky's the limit for this kid, because I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but he's never satisfied with his station with the team. Right. He always wants to work harder. And you see that every play that you see from him. He doesn't take plays off. Every route he runs is crisp. He doesn't round them. He gives the quarterback the best opportunity to get him the football. And I don't know how much you watch a lot of NFL players, but when you watch some wide receivers, they will round those routes if they don't think the ball's coming their way.
Yep.
Because it takes effort to make that stop, cut, and just change direction and sprint. Adam Thielen will do that even if he knows he's the number 4 option on the play. Back when he was returning, he was giving it all he could. Yeah.
It's why you got to love everything about him, because when you dive deep into what makes him great, that's the first thing that I've heard other players, if you watch NFL Game Pass or even his teammates when Diggs was here, he's like, oh, he's going to run the route, and it's going to be exceptional because he's not going to beat you with blazing speed. He's not the tallest or the biggest guy like Julio Jones or DK Metcalf body type, but there's something to be said about crisp route running. And I think a great analogy that's I can't remember who somebody said, it was probably in that top 100 when people compare him. They said, it's like Jordy Nelson with Aaron Rodgers. He's like, that guy's the same way. He's bigger than you think when you meet him. Not going to overwhelm you in size, speed, blah, blah, blah. He's like, but
yeah, Jordy Nelson didn't have elite size, didn't have elite speed, but Aaron Rodgers knew that he could throw the football where Jordy Nelson was supposed to be, and he'd be there.
And I'll give Diggs all the credit in the world. His time here, he evolved every season and got better and better and better. And obviously he had the big catch in the playoffs, but Adam Thielen has just as many amazing catches, but they kind of go under the radar. And I think he likes it that way. I think it pisses him off. I think a lot of that stuff, especially with being Diggs being hyped up and him being in question there. Oh, he's not a 1. Diggs is 1. Like, I think that motivates the shit out of that guy. And I really like that now he's going to have a chance. Also, I like that the Vikings drafted a badass wide receiver because they just had a history of not living up to it. I don't see any of that with Justin Jefferson. I think he's going to be incredible.
Have you seen some of those side-by-sides of Justin Jefferson running routes next to Adam Thielen? And they are almost identical.
It's funny you mentioned that because Justin Jefferson, obviously this is in jest and just joking, but he put the 2 tapes up and he said, Adam Thielen wants to be just like me. And I love that they're already starting to talk shit to each other and they're going to build that chemistry. And then one of the first things that I see in one of the first camps is Adam Thielen walking side by side. I don't know if he had his arm around him or not, but he's walking next to him, and he's grooming him already. He's like, look, dude, you're the 2 now. Like, this is your spot, so you got to come out. I expect such big things from that kid, and what a mentor, right? Mr. Mankato is going to be your mentor, and you get to work beside him. How cool is that for him?
Now, I was reading on Twitter today that Justin Jefferson has already worked his way through the third-team offense, and is already working with the second-team offense, so it wouldn't be too shocking to see him working with the first-team offense very shortly.
Shit, I didn't know that. That's good to hear. I expect it from a guy like that, though. I hate to keep going back and I'm just going to have the Justin Jefferson stroke his ego.
Well, we all like BC. We do.
Yeah.
BC's a good kid.
He's going to make it. I hope that Taji Sharp does. I, for some reason, have a big affliction with that kid in a great way. KJ Osborne, you really like.
I'm a big fan of that kid's special teams abilities. And I think that he can be a burner.
But speaking of Justin Jefferson, look at what he just came in from. If you're going to compare anything in college to being as close to the NFL as possible, I'm not even talking about that school. That team last year was the best college team I've ever seen. They were phenomenal, and he was the number 1 receiver in the nation last year. So I'm so pumped about him. I'm sorry, this was supposed to be about Thielen, but we somehow turned it into the Justin Jefferson show. But I'm super pumped for that kid.
Well, the point that we're talking about Justin Jefferson for is because he does have Adam Thielen there. And during that live interview on Facebook with Mike Zimmer Foundation and Mike Zimmer and his daughter, he did talk about having Adam Thielen in the locker room to mentor a lot of these younger wide receivers is such a blessing because he is so good at what he does and he is willing to take that time. And it's those kind of players in the locker room that can help an entire team get better.
Yep. I think back to now that we're talking about Thielen, I just realized I was super passionate. I was getting loud. Thinking back about Thielen, last year and the year before, when he had those 8 games in a row where he had 100 yards or more.
Oh, yeah.
Still an NFL record. Last year was a little banged up, still had more touchdowns and digs, and still had a good presence, caught the amazing catch against the Saints in the playoffs. Thinking about it, though, you've seen him get into it with Kirk Cousins, and I love that fire because you're gonna have to be on the same page. And the kid just wants to win, man. I'm with him though to kind of round out that main topic. I don't think that he was taking a shot at all at anyone in the leadership there. I think it's more of holding the players accountable, which is such a good captain.
Right, I definitely think he was calling out the rest of his team to say, it's time, let's go do this. I don't think it was a shot at saying anyone is kind of slacking or trying to skate by on hype. I don't think it was anything like that. I don't think it's the organization feeding the hype into the players. I don't think it's anything like that. But you can't blame Adam Thielen for giving everything he has to the team for this long to come up short every year and not want to finish off the job and get things done.
And being close,
you can't blame him.
They've been close a couple of times, especially in his tenure. The Blair Walsh year, the miracle year, last year winning a game. I mean, it's not like it's been out of reach. It's been fairly close.
And that home Super Bowl was so close.
Oof, so good. And that's a good. I mean, we don't have to talk about the Eagles game, but that's a kind of a throwback to what we were talking about. Believing too much in the hype because they were on a
complacency. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, they were, and they admitted it afterwards. And Philly sure showed them what was up that next game. So I'm with it, man. I like this attitude. I love Adam Thielen. I mean, I got his jersey for the show. Love the kid. My favorite Viking.
My Adam
right
Thielen
now.
jersey's in the back bedroom.
Is it in the locker room?
Oh yeah, there's one in the locker room too.
I don't have anything else as far as topics this week. I think I'm glad we got to talk about Everson for a little bit. I'm really sad that he's gone, but happy that he found a new home. Kind of figured that would happen.
There were a couple of transactions of minor players that they picked up a running back and they dropped an offensive lineman. And, these are all players that right now probably won't make the team. The fourth running back they picked up is probably just to fill out the different offensive units. Probably keep him around. Maybe if they like him enough, slide him onto the practice squad because Minnesota already has their running backs. Their four running backs. that they know they're going to keep. And past that, you got CJ Ham at fullback, of course. But yeah, other than Dalvin Cook, Madison, and you've got Amir Abdullah and the big muscly guy. Who am I missing here?
CJ Ham, Madison, Cook, Mike Boone.
Mike Boone, yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
big muscly Mike Boone.
We've posted it. Thank you, Kyle West. If you end up watching this, he'll be back next week. Hopefully, he's busy this week and working and stuff. But it looks like all the running backs have been lifting with Danielle Hunter, and they're jacked, like
ridiculously jacked.
And I'm not saying it because like Adrian Peterson was obviously chiseled out of stone, but he was a taller guy. None of these running backs are like super tall, like Derrick Henry, Adrian Peterson tall, and they're huge. And it's kind of weird seeing that from Mike Boone because we got to see him in the preseason and he flashed a couple of games. And if they turn into this and they can keep somewhat of the speed with that size, they're going to plow through people. So
Boone is looking like a Mack truck.
Yeah, he's massive. You guys check it out on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Purple People Podcast. It's up there at one of the top things. Kyle West just posted. It's getting a lot of traction. So check that out.
One of the funniest things I think I've ever read is when somebody asked Adrian Peterson about how his arm muscle can be a little bit of a detraction from holding onto the football just because his bicep is just so large.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't doubt that might be a problem as to why he had a little bit of a fumbling issue for a while because, man, those guns, whew. It's
crazy, man. Especially when you got a guy like me with genetics where I have these long noodle arms. It's depressing to look at, honestly. Well, this is funny. I wanted to talk about this to end the show, and I just typed in, if you go to google.com, at least for me in my region, Vikings, Packers. We are 28 days away from the week 1 home opener in Minnesota. The Vikings will host the Packers. September 13th from now. 12 p.m. Central, 1 Eastern. It's going to be on Fox. But I put this in, and I just want to let everybody know, like, we're less than 30 days from football. But 2 days ago, ex-Vikings quarterback Tommy Kramer installs a Packers urinal in his bathroom, and there's a visual for it. Shout out to Tommy Kramer. That's incredible. Oh, that's hilarious.
Tommy Kramer's been doing a lot of really great stuff. He went to a children's hospital and visited a kid who was just a massive Vikings fan, and he hung out there for a while and really made that kid's day. Sadly, the kid passed away. I think it was 3 days later, but he was able to make it there and bring some brightening to a rather dark time. So that was amazing to read.
That's awesome of him. Sorry for that family's loss, but that's great that he did that. That's really cool.
Yeah, he's been doing a lot, going around and visiting with people and signing autographs and taking pictures with people. And I love when former Vikings players love doing that.
Yep.
Just love the community that helped make them celebrities rather than just athletes. And it was funny because I was reading another article too where CJ Ham was talking about how making his first Pro Bowl and he can still walk around like normal wherever he goes just because he's shorter and doesn't have like a famous face or anything. He's like, I just walk around and do my normal thing. Nobody stops me or anything.
Those are the simple victories because you can be rich, you could be a millionaire and not have to worry about people pestering you when you want to take your family to dinner, which is great.
Oh, that's absolutely true. I couldn't imagine what it'd be like to want to go to a restaurant if you're Tom Brady. You'd have to call and get like a private booth, and at that point, it's not even worth it.
That's the thing that people, just going off a little rant and sidebar here, just to fill out the end of the show. People complain about, well, these guys just throw a ball and blah, blah. I've had that conversation on the show many times. If you were as good in your specific field as these guys were, you could make a shitload of money like they do. But fact is, most of us are replaceable at what we do. That's why we have everyday jobs, whatever. But that's the other thing, the celebrity of that. Oh, well, if I had $50 million, I wouldn't care. I give it 2 months and you would be fed up through the roof and be like, I can't do this anymore. That's just funny. Like CJ Ham's like your everyday dude, but also he'll run you over and run through a brick wall. And you wouldn't know him if you would just pass him in the supermarket. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's funny. When I was living in Minneapolis, St. Paul area, there were often times I wondered if I was walking around in Hy-Vee and there were Vikings players in there, or if there were celebrities that were there. I know that people go to the Mall of America all the time for celebrities to do whatever people do in the Mall of America. I can't stand that place, but people seem to love it, so more power to them. But yeah, I just sometimes it's easy to forget that NFL players are celebrities, and some of them are just so recognizable. Like if you saw Kyle Rudolph walking around, you'd know that's Kyle Rudolph because he's what, 6'6".
Yeah, just huge.
And he's got that Kyle Rudolph look.
Like sweet tats. We should call each other Kyle. Oh, wait. Well, I put all these together so we didn't have to keep switching through. I don't know if you call this ingenious or lazy, but you should hook this guy up, man. This is Adam Carlson right over there. And these are all of the places that you can find his work. And I really want to push the Twitch there in the middle. I got on last night. I was a little late, always late, but got it done. If you go and support Adam Carlson on Twitch, he could be paid for that as well. He's only, 8 people away, you said before we started?
Yeah, 8 followers away, and I can qualify for becoming an affiliate and start getting paid to stream over there. So that'd be kind of fun, and I'd really appreciate it. I play a lot of games on there, games that you don't need to buy. You can play along with me on your phone while you watch Twitch. And honestly, I just love interacting with people and seeing some of the fun answers and ways that people play some of the games, because I spend a lot of time by myself and with cats. So being able to interact with people is nice. It's absolutely nice. I'm sitting here and Bernie's just staring at me. Freaking cat. But yeah, so please check me out on Twitch. Otherwise, the Viking Age, I put out a couple articles over there. We've already talked about those, and honestly, I thought they were a lot of fun. The one about the locker room, I thought was going to take off a little bit more, but it turns out the Adam Thielen one, maybe because it's Thielen, I don't know. People do love Adam Thielen. Undead Walking right now, I'm working on an article about 10 characters who died too soon on the show, and there were quite a few that never really got a chance to live their full lives and tell their story. So I think it'd be fun to honor some of those characters that never got that chance. Otherwise, Sarah Beth Pollock does a great job over there. And also we've got the Undead Walking podcast, which I've done 3 episodes of now, I believe. And honestly, I have a lot of fun doing that because me and Sarah Beth don't always see eye to eye, but we respectfully can debate things and have a good time while we do it and love what we do. So if you like The Walking Dead, download the Undead Walking app, download the Viking Age app. You can get all those stories sent to your phone, which is really cool. If you download the Twitch app, you can follow me, you can add notifications for when I go online. That way you can catch me whenever you want to. If you're not a big fan of what I do, I'd appreciate the follow still. You don't have to turn the notifications on. Then you can just forget about it. You'll never hear from me again, but I'll still get that follow, and that'd be awesome.
Hey, I did it. I'm not going to lie. And it's not because I don't like Adam, because if I didn't like him, I wouldn't have do this podcast with him for like 7 years now, something like that.
Right.
I don't use Twitch, but I want to help this guy out and get paid. So we're over here clicking on his articles and reading them and going through stuff. Little things that take 10 seconds out of your time to help him out. And these are all the places that you can find Adam Carlson and his work.
And right now things are really slow with so many news organizations. Some places are laying off writers and bloggers. So it's a really tough time to make it through right now based on what I do. So anybody that goes and clicks through an article, shares an article, follows on Twitch or whatever, I do greatly appreciate it. It means a lot to me because it's a tough time right now.
Yeah, some people aren't as fortunate. I haven't celebrated a lot because I feel rude about doing it. It's the best year of my life personally, but this pandemic going on and everything like that, you got to kind of test the waters on what you go around being happy for. There are people that are barely, surviving and struggling to eat, but we're trying to promote it here. We love our guys at the show. And this is another one here beneath us right now. If you go to redbubble.com/people and Phantasm Digital, that's Kyle West. He's our other host. You can find all kinds of cool stuff here. I meant to grab some stuff last week, so I'm going to grab some more Purple People podcast gear.
I saw he just uploaded some amazing photos too to that site. He was sharing them on his social media, on his Twitter, and I thought they were really good. I might actually go and order some prints.
I'm going to try to go and see if he's got anything new on. I'm trying to pull it up now as we filibuster a little bit.
But yeah, each of us has our own little side hustles. I'm trying to talk Mr. Smith into creating a Twitch account where he can go and play his guitar and sing, because Twitch isn't just for video games. It's there for bloggers, podcasters, makeup tutorials, whatever. It's a social network where you can show off what you do, interact with others, and just have a good time. So it'd be great to see you take your talents. I love what you do on Facebook video, I do. But right now you're only sharing that with your friends, which I appreciate that. It's awesome that you're doing that. But get out there, get your voice out there.
We're going to, and I have big news. I'm not going to share it yet, but yeah, we're going to have to get more eyes and stuff on there. Not that I want to do that maybe for a living. That'd be cool if it were to work out, but it's just a fun hobby, but kind of cool. Speaking of me, I'll put it up here for like 10 seconds. If you have Instagram and you want to be friends, hit me up, shoot me a friend request on there. I'm on Instagram every day, just browsing around, wasting time. But yeah, I'll take your word on that Twitch stuff. I've already had another friend suggest the same exact thing, and I think I should probably get on board with that.
Another cool thing that you could do on there if you felt it was there's this thing called Twitch Sings, which is basically Twitch karaoke. So you can sing some songs that are open license, and you can create an audience that way. You'd be surprised the number of people that would love to watch someone sing songs and interact with their fans on social media. It sounds silly, like why would people want to watch that? But you'd be so surprised.
It's just the evolution of stuff, man. Like back when I was stationed in El Paso, Texas, one of my best buddies, shout out to Alexander Diaz, I miss you, bro. He's a Bucks fan too, so we'll be talking crap this year when they play top rated Bucks. But his son liked to watch other kids video gaming, and I didn't necessarily make fun of it at first. I was like, that's a thing? He's like, dude, that's all he does. He's very into it. And I believe it was either Fortnite or I can't remember the name of the other game with the big blocks and cubes, but every young boy loves
the Minecrafter.
Minecraft. That's what it was.
Kids love the Minecraft.
Love watching that. So if there's an audience out there that wants to listen to me cover some country and rock songs, I'd love to do that. That'd be a lot of fun. It'd be another outlet that I can maybe get some more eyes on. That'd be great.
One of my favorite Twitch people plays WWE 2K19, and what he does is each person, like viewers, can sign up for wrestlers. Then he'll run each week like a show, like a wrestling program with shows each week at certain times, and watch them to try to take their wrestlers and make them and get them to win championships. It's such an awesome idea and so much fun to watch because people will root for their wrestlers. You'll see people rooting against the other people that might be taking their spots. It's an interactive community that's just wild.
I like that, especially now with everybody being cooped up this year and a weird part of the world and time we're in. Being inside, it's a way to connect with people, even if you can't actually physically be there. So that's really cool.
But yeah, I can't recommend Twitch enough to people because it does open some doors to people who may be trapped inside or not have access to a lot of the people that they would want to. You can use it to connect. You can use it to show off your talents. You can use it to find other people with talents. Or you can use it to watch me. I ain't got talents, but I'm here to have fun. So hopefully come have fun.
We're going to get you paid, man. We're going to post that on the podcast page.
By the way, I'm MN Viking Zombie on pretty much anything. So if you want to add me on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, I'm MN Viking Zombie everywhere except for Xbox Live. And if you want to add me on Xbox Live, we'll have to talk a little bit first because I don't give that out immediately.
You're going to have to take him to dinner first before you get that Xbox name.
That's right. And we're talking cheesy biscuits. That's what we're talking.
Ooh, Red Lobster. Let's go.
I haven't been to Red Lobster in years.
I haven't either, but when you said that, that's the first thing that came to mind, and I remembered how
Absolutely.
good they were.
But yeah, that's all I've got for this week. You don't have anything else you want to add, right?
No, I just want to take 30 seconds out and just be a little philanthropist in my mind and just be, look, guys, we're coming up on an election. I've stayed my ass off of Facebook because of this particular thing. There is so much divide and so much hatred and yelling at each other in this country. If you're listening to this, and anybody that does listen to this, take time this week to compliment someone on their appearance or an act that they did, or you yourself. If you don't feel like you have the courage to go up to someone and say something, maybe you could do an act for someone, and that's how you'll show. Let's bring some positivity back, because the nation needs positivity right now. And I hate to sound cheesy, but I mean that. I don't think that there should be any yelling at who you're going to pick as your presidential candidate. It doesn't define who you are. It's a rough year for everyone. It's a weird year. People are off kilter, and their energy is kind of shifted a little bit. So let's just be nice to each other, man. And
I completely agree. Tell someone what you love about them.
Absolutely. And guess what? If you've made it through this part of the podcast, if nothing else, football's about to be back. So we can all be happy together for at least one thing, and it's going to be right around the corner. So it should be nice.
Now, we didn't have anyone in the live chat today, probably because we didn't promote the show very well, and there's a lot going on, and we're going at a weird time when we don't usually go. So still, if you're listening to this afterwards, give us a like, subscribe, share, all that kind of stuff. We really do appreciate it. We want to build a community here of football fans who love to talk about the Minnesota Vikings, and we hope we can continue to do this for many, many, many more weeks to come, because we just enjoy doing it as fans. So yeah, please continue to support us. We will hopefully be doing a Survival League this year. Fingers crossed. Otherwise, I just want to thank everyone again for listening and hanging out for this over an hour, where we seem to be talking a lot about nothing, but it's still a lot of fun. And remember to stay classy, Minnesota.